standout. Everything runs through.
Tech and tortillas.
Everything runs through.
Tech and tortillas.
All right, fellas. Thank you all for joining us for Tortilla Talk this week. We got a few topics we're going to discuss with y'all today. The primary one being the Colorado versus Texas Tech recap. Not quite the result that we wanted, but we'll get into that in a little bit. And we're also going to talk about Texas Tech basketball, and then also how we're potentially finish the football season. But with that, we got a familiar face and a not so familiar face. So Dallas, you're the familiar face, by the way. How are you doing?
Man, disappointed with the weekend, but it was fun. It's fun. We had a big group go up there, and it's fun tailgating, getting to see for some of us, it was the first time we got to see the new South End Zone completely finished and stuff. But yeah, fun weekend in that sense. Just wish for a different outcome.
That is fair. And Colin, the new face, for y'all that don't recognize him, Colin's joining us for the second time this year. We've gone way back with Colin, all the way since high school, so he's going to help us fill in the gap with some of the people that we're missing today. But we appreciate you for jumping on in such short notice. But what were your takeaways from this weekend? How do you feel?
Yeah, happy to be back for sure. Just disappointment. I feel like it's a very fitting theme as a Texas Tech fan, where you kind of get your hopes up and then they disappoint you, and then you go up again and then back down. So it's very fitting, but it was cool. I mean, I wasn't there with you guys in Lubbock, but seeing the Big Noon Kickoff on the TV, I was definitely excited to, see all the fans and just, shout out to Lubbock and all that. So it was cool, all the pregame and, getting ready for it. But yeah, the football, it's another topic.
Yeah, that's perfect, because the first thing I did want to talk about, you mentioned how we get so excited for these things, and what a big stage. Big Noon Kickoff. They brought out everything. They set it up right next to the baseball stadium. And, there was a great showing. Myself, Dylan, and my buddy Christian all went to it. We got up early and went over there, and it was a pretty electric atmosphere. A bunch of students were out there, a lot of great signs, and tortillas were flying everywhere. Music was bumping, and so it just felt like a great start to the day. Did y'all get to catch any of it on TV?
I definitely watched on TV, and
Yeah.
The biggest takeaway I had was the tortillas. I mean, obviously they throw them in the football games, and it's our tradition for sure. But you could kind of get a sense, like watching on air, that they were like starting to get a little annoyed. I mean, like it was they love Lubbock, and it seemed like they had a good time, but it just seemed like some of the times they were like, I think like I saw like Mark Ingram get just like decked in the back of the head, and so and I saw a lot of people on X responding to them being like, hey, sorry about the tortillas and all that. So anyways, but yeah, really, really cool to, like I said earlier, just to get to shout out to our fans, and don't get that opportunity much. So it's cool to see it.
Yeah, Colin, they definitely, I got there before it started, and that was one of the things they brought up. But I think they quickly realized that there was nothing they could do about it. And so they were just like, try not to throw them. And then like the DJ in the separate booth was like, throw them at me if you're going to throw them, or keep it in the stands. But they just kept piling it on over there. So it definitely became overwhelming. And there wasn't much they could do about it, unfortunately. But luckily, it was just tortillas in that instance, it looked like. Dallas, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, it was kind of a foreshadowing of later in the night when we were raining down things on the field. But yeah, I thought that the Big Noon Kickoff was good for the university and the school. Like, just see, how hyped Tech can get around a big game. And I thought like the beginning of that football game that's as much energy as I've seen in the stadium like ever, I think. At least going back to like when I was a kid in like the Leach era, and maybe like the very beginning of the Cliff years. But yeah, it was really cool to see like everybody come out there and get really excited about the game. The crowd got packed early, like kickoff. Everybody's in their stands, loud. That was definitely the most amount of tortillas I've ever seen thrown. It was like midway through the fourth quarter, and there were still like we were up towards like the top of the stands, and somehow the like 15 rows behind us still had like packs of tortillas they were throwing. So yeah, the environment was awesome. And for once, like in a big game like that, Tech didn't seem to be like too nervous or antsy like by the moment, which is like happened several times this year. It looked like they actually fed off the crowd and got rolling. Things changed, but yeah, I can't say anything about the atmosphere and fans showing out today or this weekend.
I think that's an extremely good point, man. When we had that first touchdown, but the atmosphere was electric. I mean, they definitely carried Big Noon Kickoff into the game. I got there on time, but didn't get to the stands until like right when that first touchdown was being scored. But man, there were tortillas flying. I saw the pictures of the first tortilla throws, and that was a bunch of tortillas. I mean, the shelves had to be empty at the grocery stores because they were flying everywhere. And Dallas, you already said this, but just to have what a big game could like in Lubbock. And I had brought a couple of friends that didn't go to Texas Tech, and they were super impressed, and just spoke very highly of the atmosphere. So that was really cool to show, especially with the new south end zone and what that looked like. And you brought up Cliff's years as well, and that's when I was at Tech, for his first good season. And there were some games that felt like that. You also had Pat Mahomes and the offense rumbling, but just that atmosphere just felt a little bit different. This was a huge game. Obviously, you have Deion Sanders and Shador coming to town with Travis Hunter, and that probably adds to the excitement just because those guys are NFL athletes. And so that excitement was, up there with the 2013 years and whatnot. And then, probably pretty close to some of the Leach years as well. But such a great atmosphere. But with that, we'll transition into the game. And so wanted to really talk about what that looked like. We already mentioned the first drive. You get off to a really quick start and really impressive start, honestly. You score right away in 4 plays. You march it downfield. And what was it? Was it a Conyers touchdown or who scored? Jalen Connors touchdown, 17 yards. And, man, what a way to start a game. And in the first quarter, you force – ready for this? Punt, punt, punt. And so Tech is just – it feels like they're owning the game. I mean, at that point, they're up – well, actually, it was, I think, 4 punts or 5 punts in a row from, a pretty stout Colorado team. So, Dallas, what were your takeaways from the first quarter?
Yeah, man, I loved the way we opened up the game. That first drive, you get the big kickoff return to start the game. The crowd's into it, and then hit a big explosive play to Josh Kelly over the middle. Then that second, third drive, you start seeing some of the symptoms of what's to come later in the game, where Tahj Brooks is just running into walls of defenders who are totally unblocked. And when you don't come away with touchdowns in those 2 drives and the run game's looking like that, I'm starting to get nervous because I think they were starting to figure some things out there. You had the defense was standing stout, but we know Tech defense, they can only hold up for so long. And then once they finally did give way, it was with the help of some officiating, it was kind of nonstop scoring from then out. But hot start, just couldn't stretch that lead enough, because it feels like even if you get one more touchdown, stretch to 3 scores early, you can really control the game. But just need to get better at punching them in when you get those opportunities.
No, I think that's a really fair call out, especially with the amount of opportunities that we had and the amount of stops that we got in that first half. Colin, watching it, how did you feel about watching the first half? What were some of your big takeaways?
Yeah, definitely. It's a good segue because the field goals and early missed opportunities, I think it's normal as a Tech fan to be like, okay, we're going to need these points, towards the end of the game. And hot start, fans getting into it like Dallas alluded to. And then it's like, okay, back-to-back field goals, you're feeling good, you're up 13-0, but at the same time, I think every Tech fan knows in the back of their mind, like, man, 21-0 would be a lot nicer to get a little cushion there. And you can see it in the offense too. I mean, like Dallas said, it's one of those things where they kind of, it's like the playbook kind of tightens up. They don't know what to do. They do, the screen pass that I think a lot of Tech fans are getting frustrated with. And then you just have these really short stint drives. And as a Tech fan, you just kind of like, okay, I feel like this is coming and it's going to shift. So anywho, overall thoughts are very similar. I think it's one of those things as a Tech fan, like I said, you don't want to get into that. You want to like stay in that rhythm, I guess. And obviously, did not happen.
It was very much so a instance where we were going to have to do more, and we just weren't doing more. Being up 13-0, 13-0 is great, but I want to bring up the second field goal that we had. You catch the pass, Corey Aiken, which brings you to the 15-yard line. 2-yard run, and then Morton takes a sack at 8 yards to really take us out of touchdown range. And that was really a theme of the game where Morton held onto the ball just a little too long, too many times, and it led to crucial mistakes and really sacks, obviously. But that defensive line proved to be a really big issue for us and really exposed something that we knew was an issue pretty much all year. But the offensive line and maybe some of Morton's decision-making too, not getting rid of the ball in some instances and even fumbling the ball twice, which, really shined a light in the second half. But to only get 3 points when you're on their 13-yard line, second you take an 8-yard sack, those were 7 points that we definitely needed. And Colin, you touched on the 13 points. That wasn't never going to be enough to beat Colorado. So maybe it's getting more aggressive. It was also outside of our script probably at that point where you really got to start thinking about what do we need to do to be not stagnant in the second and third quarter. So Dallas, what are your thoughts on the offense and why we're stalling and what that looks like to you?
I thought that, like, after those first few drives, Kinley and Joey just were dead set on trying to chip away at the record for Tahj and just running it into boxes that we were outnumbered or we did not have good scripted runs. Colorado seemed to eat up our counter all night that they stick to, and we had to go to some outside zone runs that worked better late in the game. But I think there you got to change it up. They totally avoided throwing to Travis Hunter. I think the only time they even tried was on the offsides play where he actually picked off the ball. But I thought man, I would have trusted some more one-on-one balls, try to get him matched up on Conyers. I don't care how good of a corner he is. Conyers' weight's 80 pounds more than him and is half a foot taller. I trust him to go wrestle a ball out of his hands. They were playing obviously a lot of man coverage, so that can be tougher to do. But I thought you could have gotten creative, maybe with some bigger personnel packages, with Conyers and Tharp out there, especially with how much your tackles were struggling, just in both pass and run blocking. You were getting killed in pass protection, so why not keep some tight ends on the field to chip at those guys when they're running routes or keep them out there to help out in the run game. It was just, I don't know. Kinley's just shown time and time again that he's really bad at adjusting after his scripted plays are up, and it oftentimes lets teams back into games, or we go on long stretches where they just are totally inept. And I know he's a young guy, but he's going to have to change that if he wants to be a successful coach at Tech or wherever he ends up next, because you just cannot have stretches of games where you get nothing at all for several drives at a time, especially when you don't have a defense to lean on.
And unfortunately, we did have a defense a lot of that first half, but Joey preaches it. The middle 12 or however many minutes it is, but ending the half and starting the third quarter, right? And what did we do there? We gave up 10 points in the second quarter, and then layer it back in with 21 points in the third. I'm not sure how much of that happened in the middle portion of it, but you exit the first half flat and get into it the third quarter flat. So that's not a recipe for success by any means. And part of that's definitely on the offense. Colin, what were your thoughts with some of the offense and how we started to slow down a bit?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the first things Dallas brought up was kind of, or in my mind too, it's definitely Tahj time, about to break the record today, or, being at Saturday at the moment. That was gonna be the time to break it. So you're hyped about him. First few drives, I mean, just a wall, right? And it's like, okay, well, and even going back, I mean, I probably watched a handful of Colorado games. I watched a lot more of them last year, especially when they were like really hyped up. And they've really improved their D line. I mean, I saw the stats, and they were aren't they one of the best defenses in the Big 12, I think, like statistically. And so I kind of wanted to see how that stacked up with one of our, offenses of, putting up points. And they definitely, showed out. And I think the play calling it's just very frustrating because, I mean, you guys both alluded to it, but, you get stopped by Tahj, and then you don't want to throw the ball downfield because you got Travis Hunter. You have no time to throw it downfield. And then you revert to these screen passes. And it's like, okay, like this is so predictable. And then the last thing is just you go through that, and your defense was just on the field, and now you got to go right back on the field because we went 3 and out. And it's just we talked earlier about the beginning of the game, how the momentum was all on our side. And when you have these 3 and outs, I mean, it just sucks that away, so.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And some of it goes to coaching, I think, when you put the players in that situation, and it's execution too. It's a little bit of everything. But in that third quarter, you lose the quarter 21-7, and it just feels like you can never really get anything going. I want to touch on the defense a little bit because, again, you hold one of the most explosive offenses to 10 points in the first half. And we touched on it. You sacked Shedeur 3 times, but don't get any turnovers. But Dallas, what did you think the defense did well, and what were the opportunities? When did it change for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you had like a pretty good game plan coming out, and I think Colorado tried to test you a little bit, see if they're going to be able to run the ball. They couldn't run the ball at all. They averaged like 2 yards a carry against you. But really, the only thing that they could do on the ground was a few scrambles by Sanders up the middle. They got a lot of pressure on him. They probably should have had more sacks. There were several times where we got hands on him, and he still was able to elude us. I know that's a credit to a future first round draft pick in Sanders, but also we've just got to be better at finishing off tackles, especially in those situations. You outgame them in a game that you lose double digits. A lot of that's made up in penalty yards. I mean, it really was like, I thought we did a really good job covering up like their first few reads. The things that burned us, ironically, were their wide receiver screens. Getting there once, like we gave them numbers on the outside, they did a really good job of getting it to Sanders and some of their quicker wide receivers and getting them in space and busted a lot of big plays from it. Something Tech is totally incapable of doing on their own offense. But I mean, the defense played well enough to win you the game. I know they didn't give you that many turnovers, but Colorado's just a tough team to get turnovers from. Sanders does not turn the ball over. He completes it at a high rate. It was a situation that they defense played well enough to win you the game. I think it mostly falls on the offense.
Agree with that statement. I mean, in a game where you hold Shedeur under 300 yards, he completes close to 60% of his passes. That's a game that you probably have, especially with a decent Big 12 team, you think you probably win. But credit to Shedeur, he made the plays when he needed to. And Dallas, you touched on it already with just getting out of the pocket and being able to get first downs if he wasn't able to complete it. Held the 60 rushing yards too. So again, just another credit to the defense. I mean, 41 points I don't think was indicative of their performance, but there were definitely times where we didn't put them in the best position. Penalties, fake punts that we didn't get execute on. Maybe a missed call on that too, as we talk about officiating. But Colin, what were your takeaways from the defense?
Yeah, I think it's, I said it earlier, but just, early on you get those stops and, you think that is, okay, we have stops. Let's put some points on the board. Obviously the field goals, you kind of say, okay, we got a great lead, but, knowing, us as, Tech fans and the history of it, it's not going to last. And, I mean, if you would have said, hey, Colorado's putting up 41 points, I would probably say, yeah, that's probably, that sounds about right. Can we win a game of them putting up 41? Definitely. I mean, you look at, I know there's questions about defense and I'll bring back offense, but I mean, Morton had 3 turnovers, interception, 2 fumbles, and I think he got sacked like what, 6, 7 times or something like that. So 7 times. Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of, do all that. I mean, you're setting up your defense, for failure, honestly. And so it's like Dallas said, I mean, I think the game falls on, this game is on the offense. I think coaching staff is responsible as well, but it's overall, I mean, you're dealing with, the thing about Colorado is their D line's great this year and their defense is really good. But on offense, I mean, they have 2, I mean, Travis Hunter might be the first pick next year. I mean, they have 2 just absolute weapons. Shadur Sanders is really good. And so you're dealing with a team like that. You got to put up points and, turnovers kill you.
Yeah, that's Colin. I really like that because you just can't make mistakes. And you were very mistake prone, and Colorado capitalized every single time almost. And so when you give a good team the ability to have good position, they're going to execute. Whereas instances where we had good position and stopping a really good Colorado offense, we didn't take advantage of that. And really, you got to key in on those things and execute. And so really it came down to the execution of those things. With that, I do think Colorado was the better team that day. I do want to touch on a little bit of the officiating, though. Dallas, I mean, it was a theme in Big 12 this weekend. I think a lot of national media heads were talking about, how embarrassing it was, not just our game, but there were a couple other games out there. Dallas, what were your thoughts on the officiating? I mean, we got to see it up close and personal.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tech fans have way more to gripe about than Utah fans. That holding call that was called was obviously holding. I know they're pissed about a few other things, but it was pretty egregious. If you think about just a couple of plays, like the 4th and goal, you hand the ball off to Tahj. It's a face mask, like it's a plain as day face mask. I don't know where these refs are looking other than the guy with the ball. Like he grabs him, turns his head. That should have been 1st and goal at the 1-yard line. We have 4 downs to punch it in and cut it to 7 with a lot of time still left in the 4th. That makes a huge difference in the game. Shadur Sanders throwing an incomplete pass on 3rd and long and getting hit at the waist and getting called for roughing the passer. And then the next play is a touchdown on a screen to Hunter. That's 7 points that, I know we defense should bow up and make another stop, but I don't care what you say. That's the officials making a huge impact on the game. That would have been a punt. They were out of field goal range. That's another 7-point swing from the officials. You want to talk about the fake punt. There's clearly at least a defensive holding on the wide receiver. I can't remember who was running the route. That's another turnover. Baron Morton on 4th down getting sacked. They throw the flag for targeting. His head's getting jerked around from another fake. Like, it felt like every single big play, the refs just blew like obvious calls that would have gone our way. And like, I know people say, oh, like you can't like blame the officials, but when there are moments like that, like football, like comes down to really like probably 10 plays in a game. And when the officials are making huge mistakes on half of those giant plays, like, I'm sorry, but that's like a huge deal in the game. And Joey said after the game, like, it has to be better. You know, they don't have to be perfect, but it can't be that bad.
Yeah, Colin, I'm gonna let you get into it, but I don't know how you don't, as a makeup call, even you see because they watch that play how many times. It's clear that Morton's head's getting jerked. Like, even if maybe it wasn't, and I still think it was for targeting, but even if you guys came to the conclusion it wasn't, as you see the guy's face get jerked to the ground, call it. Keep the flag on the field. Don't pick it up. Like, how are you not going to just, oh, yeah, we totally missed that. Let's overturn this call. Like, come on, guys. Come on, be better than that. But Colin, what were your thoughts watching it? I mean, you probably got to see a bunch of replays where we were just heat of the moment, just frustrated, seeing it on the big screen, and you heard the boos over the TV. Like, it was pretty constant. But what were your takeaways getting to see replays of it and whatnot?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask on the field what it was like, but on the watching from TV, it was the one that sticks with the most was that ref and the passer call, because I mean, it's definitely a rule that's changed if you want to talk college and also in the NFL. And you go for the legs. Okay, I mean, I get it. You go for the head. Targeting. Can't do that either. But going at the waist, throwing the flag. I don't know. I feel like very old school saying this, but it's like, when can we just get back to like playing football? I know it sounds so simplistic, but it's like, that's just like, what are you supposed to do as a defender? Like, I just don't understand that. And it's it's frustrating. And the one thing I'll say on TV that I thought was interesting, and I don't know if anyone else caught this or saw it later, but so the face mask that wasn't called, ref and the passer, everyone on the call was very, like, especially the ref and the passer one. A lot of people, I mean, the announcers were like, I can't believe that. I don't see that at all. But the fake punt, they were mentioning something about, the guy was thinking that he was blocking, but it's like, no, he's running a route. So like, I thought that was weird. They didn't like pick that up either. I was, maybe saying some words on the TV that I shouldn't say now, but anywho, yeah, just frustrating. And and Dallas brought up Joey's, post game press conference. I think he touched on it really well, where, I don't want to be this guy that's like, oh, the officiating screwed us this game, and you see the score and you go, two possession, two scores. They just won the game easily. It's like, but those are such pivotal calls, and across the board, they just have to be made. So just frustrating.
Yeah, Colin, he definitely did speak about the punt play as well. And he mentioned the spacing. So maybe that's what they were talking about, with one of the receivers was supposed to be blocking the other one. But even then, that probably isn't accurate. And Colin, the score is also an interesting concept too, because I was trying to explain it to one of my coworkers, and it was like, yeah, we lost by 14, but we still had an opportunity with a minute left to go march downfield and tie the game. And so really it's a one-score game. But even explaining that to somebody, I was like, it never felt like a one-score game either, because it just felt like we played so terrible. But part of that was definitely due to some of the swings that we had, and unfortunately, we didn't favor in any of the swings relative to momentum. I think it felt like it was really like kicking a kid down when they're down, and what do we do to get back up? And unfortunately, we were always met with either a sack, a penalty, or something of that nature, where we felt like we were just staying enough in it. But there was nothing we could quite do to crawl out of that hole that we were in. And I think it was perfectly exemplified with Morton's fumble to then make it a 2-score game, a bigger win than a spread than it probably should have been. But that's kind of how I feel about that. Dallas, any final takeaways from this game?
I don't know. I honestly, like, going into this game, wasn't too hopeful that we were going to win. We actually lost in a different way than I was expecting, but I didn't really like the matchup. Put up a good fight for most of the game. If it's played 10 times over, I think Tech wins a decent amount of them. But I think, as the season's gone on, I think that that we've maybe gotten, we've been waiting for like a team to step up for 15 years and actually do something with this program and make an actual run. But I think the way Joey's building this was always going to be like a several year project to build to get to where we want to be. And, I know it's his third year, but really that first year he didn't get a full recruiting class. It was still like in the 40s. And so if you look at like our overall like talent level, it's kind of top third ish in the Big 12. Not really good enough to talent anybody. But I think that this program is headed in the right direction under Joey. I think that you definitely need some changes this offseason, whether you're going to change coordinators at offensive or defensive side, position coaches, or if those coaches are going to change some part of their philosophy. I just think that we're leaving a lot on the table, but I do think that there are brighter days ahead.
Yeah, very well put. I feel that, there's a lot being left on the table. I think I've come to reality in the fact that, this is just the kind of team we have right now. And I think there's talent on it. I think there's promise. I think that the future is bright, but I don't really let myself get let down, I think. And maybe it took me halfway through the season to get there because there were just so many instances. But, this was a game where they had the ability to really say, hey, no, we're here right now. Or maybe we are a year removed or a year away from it. And that was the step that we took. That's not a bad thing. But we have 2 more games. We got to see how we do. Colin, what were your final thoughts for the game?
Yeah, think about the game and then almost pulling it back big picture as well. Like the Big 12 landscape I mean, I know this is a tough loss, but it makes me excited about the future because you look at, this game or Iowa State last week and BYU Utah playing, right? These are all winnable games for Tech. There's not like a program that you're like, oh man, can we beat this team? And so it makes every year exciting. Even the Big Noon Kickoff, the fact that if we were to win this game, there's still a path to get to the conference championship and then to a 12-team playoff. Like it's just really exciting to get there, right? And so I know right now sitting at 6-4 and going through the season we have, it's it might sound a little like delusional, I guess, but I do see the path. I think Joey's the guy. To Dallas's point, there is going to be changes made. I think from a player perspective, and from a coaching perspective. And I don't want to, end it on, our quarterback, but I think that needs to be a topic as well, where he had 3 turnovers in a big game. And you think about all the NIL money that's being passed around. You think about the teams out at the top, they're paying top quarterbacks top money because it makes that much of an impact. So I think that's something to consider moving forward for Tech. And, but I think the future is bright though.
Yeah, Colin, that's a really interesting topic. And even with the, they're paying offensive linemen top money too, the programs that are pretty serious. And so I know that was a topic that was brought up after the game. And so that's something that we'll have to visit this upcoming year because, Morton got sacked 7 times, but there's 5 people in front of him as well. So definitely got to be a topic there. And how do we fix that? But I won't delve too much into that. I do want to, before we move on to the Big 12 landscape, I do want to get y'all's input on how do we finish the year. There's only really a couple of outcomes that can happen, or a few outcomes. How do you think we finish? We got West Virginia, and why am I drawing a blank on the other game? West Virginia, Oklahoma State.
Hey, Troy, real quick, before we go off, I just wanted y'all's thoughts being there. I don't know if y'all already talked about this, but what about the jerseys? Are y'all fan? Because, watching from TV, and I think a lot of Tech fans resonate with this. I wasn't a fan of the gray back in the day when I think Baker was maybe our quarterback, and I'm blanking on the other quarterback that was like switching, snaps with Baker at the time. I wasn't a fan then, and even there you go. Thank you, Davis Webb. I think he's the OC. I think at the Broncos. I think, but anywho, I wasn't a fan back then. When they released them, I was so hyped because it was like Mahomes jersey. but I still wasn't feeling them. But when I saw them on the field, I was like, they're kind of sweet. I saw a lot of fans repping the new jerseys. Just want to end it maybe there. What were y'all's thoughts on them?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because Nick, who was actually going to be on with us, he bought one of the galvanized jerseys, and he would kind of just like stop and he would look at everybody that wasn't wearing a galvanized jersey, like in our group, and be like, "Hey, I'm galvanized." He's built different, and so it's just one of the little recurring jokes that we had. I thought they were pretty cool. I thought, the galvanized jerseys looked pretty slick. You need it against a fast Colorado team. It was hopefully going to make us a little bit faster because they're a very quick team. But Dallas, what did you think about the jerseys?
Yeah, I liked the jerseys. I thought that if you're gonna do gray, I thought that was as good as you could probably make gray look for Tech. And I know we wore gray a ton when Mahomes was here, so he's got a bias towards it. But like the jerseys you could buy at Red Raider Outfit or wherever, like those were like pretty cool jerseys. I thought they were good, and I think most people reacted kind of crazy, and there's some people that act like it's forbidden to wear gray on a football field. But I will never say anything about a jersey Mahomes cooks up as long as he's showing out some NIL money for us.
I like that. And the red face mask was clean too. That was a good touch.
Yeah, it's a good
So
touch.
but it's so cool seeing his logo on there. It's so unique. I mean, like, is it Jordan brand and of an athlete that has his own brand on a football jersey? I can't think of another one. I mean, that's awesome.
Michael Jordan has his own brand on a football jersey.
He does. Yeah.
No, but Colin, that's how I was, explaining it to, and he's not Michael Jordan yet, but
Keyword.
Explaining it to people that aren't as familiar with football. I mean, it's the first instance where Texas Tech, gets to rep it. Patrick Mahomes is a huge name in football, obviously, and so super cool that we get that experience, and that he still stays so close to the program and that he cares so much. But all right, how do y'all think this season ends? Colin, tell me what happens.
Oh,
What's
man.
Tech?
Yeah. It's is it bye week, right? And then we have, is it Oklahoma State or is it West Virginia?
Oklahoma State, then West Virginia.
I mean, Oklahoma State is by far the biggest disappointment in the Big 12 this year. Is that safe to say? They had,
Them or Utah?
both are just up there. And so, and they still haven't won a game in the Big 12, have they? Oh my gosh.
Yes, they've won one.
No.
They got one? Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at
wait, who do they beat?
I didn't think they did.
Utah's won one. Oklahoma State is undefeated.
Okay,
They're defeated.
Isn't that crazy? If someone was on Peckin Tortillas at the beginning of the year and said, you know what, we're going to be in, almost mid-November, and those teams are going to combine one win. I mean, that's crazy.
That's
hey,
insane.
I did call out Ollie Gordon for being a fraud before the season started.
I like that take. I like that.
You did.
I mean,
that's good.
So are we going 8-4, 7-5, 6-6?
I think y'all both know me. I'm a pretty pessimistic Tech fan, but I'm gonna be optimistic here. I think we're gonna go 8-4. I think we take care of business. Like, you think about this whole season, it's always been like this, right? It's been this like disappointment. Oh, we're back. So I think we win both games, and then maybe y'all know 8-4, like what bowl that would be projected towards. I just I don't want to go back to the Independence Bowl. So let's step it up.
Yeah, 8-4 is pretty good record.
I think it would either be Alamo or Pop-Tart if we're lucky.
Ooh, both are wins to me.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Dallas, how are we finishing?
I think we go 8-4. Like, honestly, I think Oklahoma State has got like basically nothing to play for. They're out of it. I think they have to win out to make a bowl game. They're 3-6.
No, 3-7.
3-7. Oh, well, yeah, they're really out of it then. They've got nothing left to play for. They've got the worst run defense in the conference, like by far. I think this is a game you can, as bad as our offensive line has run blocked at times, Oklahoma State's run defense is that bad. Like we should be able to hand it off to Tahj 30 times, get it to backup running backs another 10, 15 times and run for like 250 yards on these guys. I'm not too concerned about them. I'm not too concerned about Bowman, especially with us starting to figure out a bit of a pass rush now. I know it's on the road. We've had our struggles, but this year we've been a bit better with some road victories against Arizona and Iowa State. Then West Virginia. West Virginia makes me a little nervous just because they've got a really solid offensive line, and can that run defense that we've really hung our hats on this year, can that hold up? If it can, then I don't think they'll be too big of an issue either, especially at home.
Yeah, I think we're very fortunate to get that one at home and then the other one against a struggling Oklahoma State team. I think the same thing. I think 8-4, you want to show the program the direction you're going, or show the fans the direction you're going. You go into Oklahoma State and you take care of business, and you get a win there, albeit against a team that's struggling. But I mean, still, it's Oklahoma State. And maybe a rivalry that will start showing out in the future Big 12. So, I bet you they come up and this game should mean something to them, but they're struggling this year. I think we can go up there and win. I'm really interested in I think Morton finishes out the season, but technically, what's his name? Why am I drawing a blank here? Hammond's only played 2 games this year. So
I wouldn't be shocked if Hammond gets like a drive or two, like because there's no especially like if the offense is stalling, like I could see him coming out like in the second quarter or something for a drive, see if they can get the offense rolling or something like that. But I think Morton should be able to play pretty well against these last 2 teams.
I didn't want to even bring that up, but I do think Morton bounces back next week. I do think he has 2 good games, and I think you really want to end the season with a bang. You go 8-4 and beat West Virginia at home, your last game at the season at home, and so that's going to be really big. I think the team finishes 8-4, and Alamo Bowl will be super cool. I know the Pop-Tart Bowl is absolutely electric after last year, but me personally, I'd be able to go to the Alamo Bowl, so that'd be awesome. And then last question, guys, before we get into basketball. I know this is a little bit longer, but who's going to win the Big 12? What's the championship going to be now? Colin?
Yeah. One last thing, too, on the record. So if we do win out and then win a bowl game, that's 9-4. Last time we went 9-4, 2009. So this puts the season in perspective, ups and downs, disappointing losses. But, hey, I mean, like, for Texas Tech, I mean, you take that, right? So who do I think is winning the conference? It's recency bias for sure, and they do have 3 games left. Colorado. I think that I just looked at their schedule. I can draw it up in a second, but I think they got to play Oklahoma State as well. They go Utah, at Kansas, and then at home against OK State. I think they win out, and BYU right now, I know they're undefeated, and I just think that BYU, they kind of remind me of that TCU team that went undefeated, where it's like they just barely win these games. They're due for a loss, like Miami, like this year. They're so due for a loss. I think BYU's due for a loss. I think we see BYU, Colorado in the Big 12 championship. I'll take Colorado.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair call. Dallas, how's it going to play out for you?
I think similar to what Colin said, I think BYU and Colorado actually went out, and you've got 12-0 BYU rolling in there, and if they do, they've locked up a playoff spot, and I think that would be good for the conference if Colorado were to then win that game and get us 2 in. Downside of that, though, is that we wouldn't probably get a bye unless BYU or unless Boise State loses another game. But in that game, honestly, I think I might like BYU. BYU's defense might be able to give Sanders enough fits to keep him in check, keep it a low-scoring game. I mean, we saw They held SMU to 13 points in that game. So I mean, they've got like, and I know it's weird because like they just don't have like the athletes or like the 24/7 recruiting rankings that make you like think, oh, this is a team that should win their conference. But they've got a bunch of really old vets, that have done a couple mission trips and come back to play football, and I think there's something to be said for that, especially like in this day and age in the portal era. So I honestly would give the edge to BYU. And if they do lose, I would love to see an SEC team go and try to win at Provo in that first weekend. See what they think, because we've heard it from several players that have said that they think that that's the hardest place, or one of the hardest places to play in the country.
I'd love to see that. I think altitude's definitely a factor there, and just how friendly those fans are. They'll slap you on the butt and say, "Good game." And you're down by 12 out of nowhere. And I don't know how they got down by 12. That's not number, or it's an even number, but a weird number, That being said, for me, Iowa State and Kansas State honestly both have really difficult schedules left, and I think they play each other. So that's kind of going to solve for itself. Iowa State's kind of fallen apart over the last few weeks. Maybe they'll be able to get it resolved. But Colorado and BYU, I mean, BYU has Arizona State, which, they've had a lot of bumps, but have really figured it out and have shown quite a bit of resolve. So good for Arizona State. I just think BYU has a, not too difficult of a schedule. So I think they, even if they only won 2 of the games, I think they get into the Big 12 championship. And I think Colorado looks like a team of destiny at this point to get to the big game. And if they do win, I think we get 2 teams into the Big 12 championship against an undefeated BYU potential. I think that's enough to get 2 teams in. So selfishly, I will say that. But, I mean, there's not much else that can happen because Iowa State and, again, Kansas State play against each other. And I think they both probably lose one more game. I mean, Cincinnati's no joke, and they both play Cincinnati as well. And so I just think that it's really tough for them, especially with how shaky they've looked in just so many games this year. So I think it's going to be BYU versus Colorado, and I think Colorado wins it, to be honest. So we get 2 teams in. But with that, enough football talk. Tech goes 8-4, 9-4 to finish the season. I think we can all agree on that. Let's talk a little basketball. So just finished our first week of basketball. Texas Tech has taken care of business. 2-0. Several people that Kerwin Walton just lighting it up from anywhere on the court. That's a major takeaway. And JT Toppin averaging 22 points a game. Absolute electric factory. Dallas, what are your thoughts so far on the young basketball season?
Man, this is going to be a lethal offense, and it's going to be exciting to watch. I think, Toppin's been as advertised. I think that, you go back and look at some of the best Tech transfers that have come in. They've all had like kind of an adjustment period, like Bryson Williams, who ended up being like all Big 12 caliber player. He like kind of took a couple months to really get rolling. Like Matt Mooney, same kind of deal. Tariq Owens was solid, but took a while to get like the offense flowing through him with the lobs and connections. And but I mean, it looks like he's stepped into a role that he is the dominant big man that we need. It'll be interesting to see when he goes up against some Big 12 talent down the line, but really exciting to see. It's tough to know what we are on the defensive side, just because I do think that it's tough, specifically when you have to go with like maybe bigger, slower like forwards, like with a Kerwin Walton and a Darian Williams out there to guard some of those quicker point guards. I think that getting Elijah Hawkins and Christian Anderson out there will help on the defensive end. But yeah, I mean, I can't complain. The last game, there was some stretches where it was kind of rough, but that's going to happen, when you don't have your main point guards running the show.
Yeah, it's a really great call out. We've been playing with almost a hand tied behind our back because we've had a not so traditional point guards be our point guards, which, you say that McMillan's very athletic, can handle the ball, and Williams is almost like he can play almost every position on the court. So they're very capable in general, but I can't wait to see those guys get healthy. Colin, have you got to watch any of the games?
I have, yeah. It's Dallas said it at the beginning, like Walton just lighting it up. Like that was like I think sometimes at the beginning of this season, it's you play all of these teams that you should take care of business, and you're just looking for how's the offense working, who's going to step up. I think, like I said, going back to the eye test, like some of Walton's threes, it's just different compared to last year already. I know it's like 2 games in, but hand and face just pulls it, no issue. I mean, it's like that is going to be such an asset for us. And then my other thought too, I didn't even think about this, but Dallas was talking about all the former players and the transfers that we got, and it makes you want to do like a memory lane, like a little like Mount Rushmore of like favorite Tech players or something. There's so many just like studs that we used to have, and so it makes me excited. And then my last take I'll say is since we're 2 games in, I have two, but my first one, going back to Jersey talk is I love the new unis. I like the retro Tech like font. I think it's so clean. I think one criticism I have of Tech is like going back to football, like the end zone, like the font. I'm just not a big fan of it. I like the old like the Crabtree, era, Graham Harrell, like that font, like that one hit different. So, anywho, and then last thing on basketball, looking at our schedule, pretty easy, non-conference. But one I really want to pencil in is December 8th, Texas A&M in Fort Worth. That's going to be awesome. So that's going to be our first, big boy test there. And I know A&M lost the first game, so they'll be looking to take care of business that early December as well. So looking forward to that one.
Yeah, and Colin, you already said this, but Dallas and I actually talked about that because we went to the basketball game on Friday. The evolution of Kerwin Walton. He, obviously a highly touted prospect when he got when he went to North Carolina, right? I think almost a 5-star recruit. And he came to Texas, transferred to Texas Tech. And I don't know if he lost a little bit of his swagger, but he definitely has it now. Because goodness, he's gotten better each year. And the guy is freaking lethal from threes, 10 for 19 this year. And put a hand in his face, someone put a foot underneath his leg, tried to hurt him. But man, the guy makes nearly everything. And so he's been super excited to watch. And you could really see him take another step the previous year, and he's taken another one this year. So that's been extremely exciting to see. I mean, overall, the team is shooting 45% from three, 54% from the field. So that just tells you, I think for me, one of my favorite things is last year we had a stagnant team that, outside of Darion Williams and if Pop Isaac was having a good game, and it could get really slow, and it could feel like we could not score in a long time. And now you got some of the guys that were on that team that are going to be playing a bigger role that can score at will. And so I think that's really big. I think the shakeup with the team was a healthy shakeup. And we'll get some of these guys in more optimal positions to be able to score and not really let us suffer in situations where maybe we're struggling to score the ball, because you're going to have 4 guys that are potentially shoot 40% from 3, maybe even 5. And you mix JT Top in with that. Talk about complimentary basketball. And that's just opening the field for a guy that's going to yam it on you with JT Top. And I mean, it's going to be hard to stop that. So I'm super excited for the offense. Can't wait for Anderson and drawing a blank on the other. Hawkins.
Yeah, Elijah Hawkins.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool that you can see like every player, like there's been dramatic improvements in their game just so far. Like Chance McMillan did not run the offense like all that much last year, but like he looks super comfortable getting like action started and handling the ball. Darian Williams, I mean, he looks like a young version of like a Boris Diaw or something. Like he's looked amazing getting offense going. Like even JT Toppin, like a lot of concerns around him was, a lot of the offense is going to flow through him. He's going to get fouled a lot. What's his shot look like from the line? I think he shot under 60% from the free throw line last year. His shot looks like really solid. I think he's shooting in the 70s for free throw percentage wise. I could see him, sitting around 75%, which would be huge. And if he continues to knock down a three every game or so, that's a huge difference maker. And you already talked about Kerwin Walton. He looks somehow even more confident in his shot. So exciting, man. Like this is already like starting to. You can see like Grant's vision. I think when he was putting together this team, what it could be. I think once we get like totally healthy, get the defense working and playing together at a high level. I tweeted out after the first game, like there's no ceiling for this team. Like if everything is firing, everything's in front of them. They can go as far in the tournament as they want to.
Yeah, it's a good call out. Like Lil Wayne said, no ceilings. So that might be the mantra for the season, honestly, Dallas. You need to go ahead and tell them that. To go ahead and tweet that song after this and let them know. I did want to say one thing, though, because you touched on my guy, Darion Williams. Favorite player last year. Love his just his ability and everything he can do. Holy smokes, man. He's playing pissed off. I didn't know he had that kind of dog in him. He's looking at guys. He's making moves. And I don't know if that's just another year under his belt, but he looks like he's about to too small some people, little man some people. He's playing pissed off, and I'm excited to see him get into a game with a little more talent because, man, he's playing with some edge right now, and so I'm super interested in that.
For sure, man. It's exciting. He's going to be, I think, a first or second team All Big 12 player. Like, he should have probably had a triple double last night if another rebound falls his way or he just gets one more shot to fall. So yeah, Darion Williams is taking the next step forward. Hopefully, our point guards can get the team to take the next step forward and for the rest of the non-con.
Yeah. Colin, any final thoughts about it? I mean, it's still an early season, but any other takeaways that you want to get off your chest?
Last one I want to bring up is, the AP poll. No top 25. I think we're used to being snubbed as like Tech and even Tech basketball. I feel like preseason and early rankings, that's a whole nother topic if you want me to give me my spiel on pre-rankings. Like, I mean, I know Kansas won a big game, but if you're UConn, you go back-to-back national titles, you return, I think 2 or 3 starters. How are you not the number one team? I just don't understand that. But anywho, Tech, but shout out John Fanta. If anyone follows him, good college basketball guy. He's got his 19th. So I think I would say 15 to 20 range is probably where we should be, in my opinion. But, maybe a little biased.
I think Ken Palm's got us 12.
Yeah. I don't get the AP really. And there's teams that have lost. Baylor got killed. It's like, I know it was Gonzaga, but if you get killed, I don't think you should be ranked.
Or, I mean, Ole Miss nearly lost to Grambling State. They dropped one spot.
Yep. I saw that. At least we're not Villanova.
Yep. Colin, great call out. I can't believe I almost forgot that. But Dallas, any final takeaways?
No, man, we're just going to win a national championship in 2025, which is going to set up for a Big 12 championship in football in the following semester. So it's going to be a great year in 2025. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's a really good call. I mean, Evelyn got to see her first Texas Tech game, and so just stacking more things on top of each other. So that's, my daughter getting to see that, then a national champion or an NCAA basketball championship, and then a football championship the following year. So that's a lot to look forward to. I'm glad that she'll be a Tech fan all because of that. And so that's a great call out there. I think final thoughts for me is future's bright with this basketball team. We'll probably go undefeated, for the next couple of seasons and win several national championships. So super excited.
Great call out, Troy.
Love it.
Yep. Well, guys, I appreciate y'all joining us today. Thank you for joining Tortilla Talk. We love having y'all. If you could do us a favor, please leave us a comment, like, subscribe. And, thank you for joining us. Colin, thanks for joining us on short notice. In Dallas, as always, you're the man. But with that, Wreck 'em Texas Tech.
Rack 'em.